Hello, this is Ms. DB, and in this video I'm going to review how to do some of the problems from the Chapter 8 Section 2 assignment, Part 2, where you're going to factor by grouping. So in order to do this, there's some examples up here. What we're going to do in the first part is just take what's common in both parts, that's the x minus 3, and pull it out, and then in the second parentheses you write what's left. So the first part of this worksheet, like 1 through 6 or 1 through 5, are not very difficult. Let's just do, it's only 1 through 5. Let's do number 4, just to show you how to do it. So we have 5 times m minus 2 minus m times m minus 2. The common factor, the greatest common factor in both of them is the m minus 2. So we go ahead and write that down in our first set of parentheses. In our second set of parentheses is what is left after we factor that out. So after I factor out the m minus 2, I'm just left with 5. And then there's a minus. I think that was a minus, wasn't it? Or was it a plus? No, it's a minus. So after I have to write the minus there. And then after I factor the m minus 2 from the second group, the m is left. So I have to write the m. And that's it. That's all you have to do for these ones. Now in the second part, you're going to actually set that up yourself. So you're going to start with something with 4 terms. So there'll be 1, 2, 3, 4 terms in each of these. And then you put parentheses around the first 2, and you put parentheses around the last 2. If there's a minus here, it's a little, you have to do a little bit more work. But if it's a plus, you just put parentheses around the last 2. Then you factor out what's common in both sets. So in the first one, we have to find the greatest common factor. So we have to find the greatest common factor of 2x cubed and 5x squared. So there's nothing common for the number part, 2 and 5. But the x's is going to, why did that erase? The x's will be a x squared common in both. So that's what I factored out, was the x squared. Once I factored out the x squared, you have to figure out what is left when you factor an x squared out of each part. 2x cubed over x squared is just 2x, so that's where the 2x came from. And then the, one second. So let's look at number 7. Then you would put what's common is the 2x plus 5. You put that in your first parentheses. And in your second parentheses, you write what's left after you factor that out. There's only a 1 common in this second grouping. So we just put a 1 there, not a 0. All right, let's look at how to do one from scratch. So in number 8, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 terms, so factoring by grouping is the way to go. First step is to put a parentheses around the first 2 terms and then around the last 2 terms. Leave the plus sign between our 2 sets of parentheses. Now we really have 2 problems to do. We are looking for the greatest common factor of 21x cubed plus 12x squared. And then we're going to look for the common factor of 14x plus 8. So in 21x cubed plus 12x squared, the factors of 21 are 1, 3 times 7, and 1 times 21. Is there anything else? I think that's it. In 12, the factors are 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. So the greatest common factor in these 2 lists is the 3. So I know my greatest common factor is going to be a 3. Now I look at the letters, the variables, x cubed and x squared. Well, x cubed is x times x times x. X squared is x times x. I can take 2 of them. So that'd be x squared. So my greatest common factor of 21x cubed plus 12x squared is 3x squared. So I put the 3x squared here. And then in the parentheses, I write what's left after I factor out a 3x squared from both of these parts. So factoring out is the same as dividing. So if I took 21x cubed divided by 3x squared, 21 divided by 3 is 7. X cubed divided by x squared, you subtract the exponents, and I just get 1x left. Now I have to take 12x squared and divide it by 3x squared. That's the greatest common factor. 12 divided by 3 is 4. The x squared over x squared cancels, and you're just left with 1 there. So 7x plus 4 is all I have to write for the first set of parentheses. Now for the second set of parentheses, 14x plus 8, I need to find the greatest common factor of that. So let's see, 14, the factors of 14 are 1 and 14 and 2 and 7. The factors of 8 are 1 times 8 and 2 times 4. So the common one is just the 2. So the greatest common factor of 14x and 8 is just 2. There's no x's in common, no variables in common, because the first one has an x and the second one doesn't. So I put the 2, and then I write what's left if I factor out a 2 from both terms. So 14x divided by 2 is 7x, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. Now this should always happen. The 7x plus 4 is the same as the 7x plus 4. If these two parentheses are not the same, then you can't continue. You can't do factoring by grouping unless these two are the same, because they won't have a common factor. Since I did get the same thing for both sets of parentheses, my next step is to write that 7x plus 4 in the first set of parentheses. In the second set of parentheses, I write what's left after I factor out the 7x plus 4. So in the first part, the 3x squared is left. In the second part, the plus 2 is left. And that is the answer for number 8, right here. Let's look at one more. Let's look at number 12. Number 12, first step is to put the parentheses around the first two terms and the last two terms. Now we're going to try to find the greatest common factor of the first two terms, 4b cubed minus 6b squared. So what's the greatest common factor of the number part, the 4 and the 6? Well, 4 is just 1, 2, and 4 are the only factors of 4. The only factors of 6 are 1, 2, 3, and 6. The greatest common factor is the 2. So part of my greatest common factor is 2. But I also have a b cubed and a b squared. The greatest common factor of those two will be the b squared. Okay, now I write what's left if I factor out a 2b squared from 4b cubed. That's division. 4b cubed divided by 2b squared. 4 divided by 2 is 2. B cubed divided by b squared, 3 minus 2 is 1, so I'm just left with 1b. Now I have to take the 6b squared, keep the minus sign, over 2b squared to find out what is 6b squared after I factor out 2b squared. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. B squared over b squared, those are the exact same thing. Those cancel. So this, I should put it over here, is how you factor the first set of parentheses. Now we have to factor the second set of parentheses. Let me use a different color. I'll use blue for that. So we had 10b minus 15. I have to find the greatest common factor of those two terms. So there's no common variable, b, and there's no b over here. But the numbers, 10 factors into 1, 2, 5, and 10. 15 is 1, 3, 5, and 15. They both have a 5 in them. So the greatest common factor is 5. So you're going to factor out a 5 from both of these terms. So if I factor out a 5 from 10b, that means take 10b and divide it by 5. 10 divided by 5 is 2, and you still have the b. If I take and factor out a 15 from 5, that's 15 divided by 5 is 3. There's a minus sign there, so keep that. Now you have to check, is this the same as this? They have to be the same in order to continue. And they are the same, so I can continue. And I can write down what's common in both of these two is the 2b minus 3. So that's my first set of parentheses. That's these parts. And then what's left after I factor that out is the 2b squared from the first group and the plus 5 from the second. That's your answer now. So again, you will always get the same parentheses after you do the greatest common factor from the first two parts and then the greatest common factor from the second two parts. Factoring by grouping only works if you get the same thing in the parentheses right there. Now the last three are a little bit tricky because of the negatives. So in these problems, factoring by grouping almost works. If we just had it arranged a little differently, then we'd get the same parentheses. So let's just start doing number 14. If you take 4m cubed minus 12m squared and try to find the greatest common factor, let's see. For the number part, it's going to be 4, because the factors of 4 are 1, 2, and 4, and the factors of 12 are 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. So the greatest common factor of the number part is 4. We also have a variable part because we have m cubed and m squared. We've done this a few times with different letters. The greatest common factor of m cubed and m squared is m squared. So let me put that here. Now I have to write what's left after I factor out a 4m squared from both terms. So take 4m cubed divided by 4m squared and see what's left. Well, the 4's cancel. M cubed over m squared is just 1m left. And then we have to figure out what is 12m squared. When you factor out the 4m squared, what do you have left? So 12 divided by 4 is 3. M squared over m squared cancels, so we just have the 3. Now, when I do this again for the second half, I would like to get m minus 3, but I don't think I'm going to, because it's in the section where you have to do a little more work. So let's write down the second grouping is 15 minus 5m. What's common in both of those? The greatest common factor is 5. There's no m's in the first term, so it's just 5. So that leaves me with 15 divided by 5 is 3. 5 divided by 5 is 1, but I'd still have the m. See how close that is to m minus 3? It's 3 minus m. It's so close. So what we do when we do this kind with these last 3 questions, these more complicated ones, is we force this to work. And here's how you do that. So I leave the first part alone. The first part's all good the way it is. 4m squared times m minus 3. But in the second one, I'm going to factor out, instead of a 5, I'm going to factor out a negative 5. So I change this to minus 5, and then I change both of these signs. So that'd be a negative 3 plus m. Now, is negative 3 plus m the same as m minus 3? Let's rewrite it. Let me give myself a little more room here. Oh, that's all right. And we'll keep drawing. I'm going to fix that. Okay, I'll just rewrite it. So that's 4m squared times m minus 3. I wasn't going to do anything to that one. And then over here, I'm going to rewrite this as m first, and then the minus 3. Look, now they're the same. Now I have m minus 3 and m minus 3. So I just had to do a little bit of algebra magic. I didn't do anything illegal. I just changed this to, I factored out a negative 5 instead of a positive 5. And that changed these signs, and then I rewrote them in a different order. So now I have the same thing in both of these parentheses. So that will be one of my factors, m minus 3. And the other set of factors will be what's left after I factor out the m minus 3, which is the 4m squared and the minus 5. And that's about as hard as these will get when you have to kind of force the match there. All right, thank you very much, and please let me know if you have any questions.